Welcome back into the channel. Welcome to Jacob Wallraven Uncensored. Hope you are too blessed to be stressed. And speaking of too blessed to be stressed, today ends in a 2-2. 2-2. We were down 2 goals, come back from down two, and end up with a draw. That's 1 point more this season than we got versus Brighton last season. I do recall, I believe it was 6 points that they got on us last season. And this year we've got one back on them. That's very nice. However, I do feel a little frustrated and I feel a little disappointed and let down by a few things. And again, I'll try and keep this under 15 minutes. That's a little bit of my target here for these pre-records. So do me a favor, hit a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But look, y'all, I want to say first and foremost with the starting 11, I was a little disappointed with Thomas Frank's choices there. The midfield, I didn't think that Bentancur would start. If you watched the preview yesterday, I had Xavi Simons starting in, actually, no, I had Xavi Simons starting at the left wing. I had him starting in general, but Xavi Simons was off of the bench today. Obviously, Mohammed Kudus for Richarlison made sense to me, but for Wilson Odobert to get the start, I don't know what he did to warrant that, and I don't know what he did to warrant staying on the pitch past halftime. At halftime, I was really hoping to see some proactive substitutions, some substitutions that which I felt would maybe, change the course of the game. One being the lack of anything creative out there from the left. Really, I just thought every time Odobert had the ball, he either lost it or he dribbled into hell. And then he had that volley that was like a very good chance that we created. It just seemed like, but he wasn't the only one. So I don't want to harp on just Wilson Odobert specifically, but that's an instance in which I'm looking at Thomas Frank like, let's change that. Would Matthias Tell offer us something better or different? I guess that's up for debate. Would Xavi Simons? Absolutely. That is not up for debate. Maybe it's a little bit of resting his legs, but I'm going to imagine that Xavi Simons doesn't start versus Doncaster, which I believe is the next match for Tottenham Hotspur is Doncaster. So I don't understand with some of the rotation. Destiny Udogie out there on the left. I'm a big Destiny Udogie fan. However, I did say again in the preview to this match that I dropped this morning that I felt Yankuba Minty would be a problem. I also said that I predicted us to win and they would only score 1 goal. So I was wrong on both of those fronts. But I did say that Minty will cause us all type of problems. And he was. But then Destiny, I thought, did some good times to deal with him. Minty allegedly got hurt before the game kicked off. I also had Rando Kolomuani getting his first start for Tottenham Hotspur in the striker role over Richarlison. Apparently he had dead leg in the build up, and Richarlison was also hurt in the warm ups, but then the doctor said he was fine. There's just a whole bunch of people apparently getting hurt in the warm ups today, and I'm wondering what the hell's going on. If this was Shmaine Shmashna Smoglu, they would have all said, Shmaine, you're trying to kill our players or something. Yeah, Lucas Bergvall starting for me, that was something I felt like he deserved and he warranted, as well as Paulinho. And then the rest of the picks are, kind of your straightaway ones. But really the main two that I disagreed with was, number one, Wilson Odobert. And then number two, I did think that Jed Spence would offer us a little bit more in the ability to deal with the pace of Minty. Whereas Destiny, I felt like the physicality would be able to deal with Minty, but not on the counterattack. And that's exactly how they beat us out there on the transition, if I recall right. Now, I haven't watched any of the highlights back. I'm just literally doing this raw dog after the match. But a name that I didn't mention in the preview that I was actually concerned about that he would do something, and he didn't do a bunch of things except for get an assist on one of the goals, but it was Jorginho Ruder. And I thought he had a okay game. I still think his best role is in the 10 position rather than the striker, but that is something he can play. But I think that his ability to drop deep and find those passes like a creative 10 was a large part of why he was able to find Minty there on that counterattack. So that's the first goal. And again, I'm not trying to harp too much on the starting 11. I just don't understand what Odobert did to warrant starting, and what has Johnson done to warrant being the first sub there on the left wing. Now, Xavi Simons, when he came onto the pitch, I thought that he absolutely changed the dynamic of the game. But before I talk too much more on that, I do want to go and talk about their second goal that they scored, because I'll be honest, disappointed in Lucas Bergvall's ability to properly clear that ball. And I'm also disappointed with Vicario's ability to, first of all, positionally aware. As a goalkeeper, naturally, when you're in your own box and you're watching your team being pressed very high up the pitch, and sometimes dealing with it well, sometimes not. And there was a lot of times we gave the ball away because of Brighton's press. And the I so again, it's an amalgamation of reasons why I think a goal happens, or why I try to not solely blame just one person. So I don't want to blame just Bergvall for the lack of clearance. I don't want to blame just Vicario for the lack of positioning and the really, you should have stopped it, buddy. You were there. You should have stopped that shot, in my opinion. But then also, I think Pedro Porro not closing down, him and Romero, it just kind of seemed like one of them didn't want to really close that down. And then it was a well taken shot from, oh, what's his name? Emilio Estevez. I don't know who the fuck that guy was. But what I do know is that he did score against Tottenham Hotspur from outside of the box. Kind of Sonny Heung-min Son's old red zone there. But I just struggle to feel as though we couldn't have gotten more from this. Again, we do. So it's a little duality. And I said this on the Football Terrace immediately after the match, that in the big picture, grand scheme of things, I'm not really that upset. I'm not really that worried. This doesn't concern. If anything, it's a little encouraging, the ability to fight back. But I'm all, I still think this is part of that wearing a new shoe. I love my new shoes. Sometimes you might get a blister on your foot, or where's like the ball joint on the front part of your foot. What is that called? Sometimes you get a blister there from the new shoe rubbing it wrong and raw. But even though these players are better in the like for like, I still go back to some of the decision making, not just in the 11, but in the in-game tactics as well. I thought Thomas did change things up when he brought Siemens on, and Siemens in the 10 is exactly where I wanted to, not necessarily where I wanted to see him. I just wanted to see him in Tottenham Hotspur shirt in general, but I feel as though the best you will get out of him is in that 10, or centrally operating with space to his left and his right. Now, naturally, he's going to gravitate over to the left, but just even whenever he did gravitate over to the left, to have that left winger and I would say overlapping fullback, but Destiny was doing a lot of inverting today. I think I only saw him overlap once or twice, so I recall. And the rest of it kind of seemed like he was doing a lot of inverting. And I don't know if that's a tactic thing. I don't know if that's old habits die young type thing. But I was confused there. But with Xavi Simons operating that 10, having a winger and an overlapping or an inverting player between him and that winger, I think that just naturally is going to pull a little bit of that pressure in front of him away. It's because that fullback's going to have to pay attention to that. So then he's going to be isolated with either a center back or a central midfielder who's dropping back. And I think that's when you're going to see the best of him. Dribbling wise, he was doing very well. Passing wise, I thought he was absolutely cooking. He found Richarlison a couple times with some threaded balls. And one of them was a dangerous moment to create a chance, and Richarlison just kind of shot it right at the keeper. But he comes onto the pitch. His first touch, I believe, was a shot that went a little wide. And I was like, next one. And then the next shot that Xavi Simons took, it went wide left. And I was like, all right, the third one's the charm. He went too wide to the right on the first one, too wide to the right on the second. And I don't think he had another shot after that. I still think we have a hell of a player there in Xavi Simons. And speaking of hell of a player, I want to give major props to Mohammed Kudus, basically our only dangerous outlet throughout most of the first half. Really, he just creates all types of problems. I thought, at least in the first half, that was a Cardioglu, Cardioglu, the fullback who got his first Premier League start today versus Mohammed Kudus. I was hoping to see him cook, and I thought in the first half that man was pressed to him like glue. Now, he was able to pry the ball a couple times, disrupt Kudus and what he was trying to do a few times. However, even whenever he was at his best in stopping Kudus still 2 out of 3 times was able to get around him. That's not an official statistic. That's just Jacob's shit memory that I remember. There's a few times he's getting pressed by Kagaloglu and some other fuck, and he got around him. Now, the spamming of the crosses into the box, I feel like he's expecting someone to be there. And whether it is him expecting him to be where he crossed it, or Mohammed Kudus' inability to cross it accurately to where the player is or is going, I don't know. I can't say for sure because I'm not on the pitch and I'm not inside Mohammed Kudus's mind as much as I would love to be on the mind of Mohammed Kudus. Unfortunately, I am not. So I don't know what the disconnect is there, but there's clearly something either on his fault, Richarlison's fault, the attacking 10, whoever's fault. Someone's at fault, or they're all sharing a piece of them. And I did get an assist on the day, so shout out Mo Kudus again for another GA. Richarlison with a goal, so that's another GA for Richarlison, taking him up to 3 goals on the season. Romero, I do think that the yellow card was a little silly, and then late in the match, he could have also little dangerous getting stuck in there on the edge of the box when you're just got a yellow. I was a little concerned there for a moment. I thought the ref was pretty woeful as well. I thought that he was kind of not really calling things well. One of their goals looked offsides to me. We've got the semi-automated thing, so you would expect technology to be right. However, I do think that again, you got to take the ref out of it. If the ref is calling it pussy shit one way and dick shit the other way, you got to be in the middle somewhere, and you got to just overpower the circumstances that are dealt to you. And I thought the ref was shit, but what ref isn't shit, right? So that's no excuse. I thought Van de Veen kind of left us a little bit. I don't know if that's part of the tactics. When they're building up play in their midfield or they're starting to counter, to go and immediately press the man with the ball. Sometimes when he does it, he does win the ball. Sometimes when he does it, he doesn't. And I thought that at least for that Minty goal, we got kind of left a little open there. And expecting Romero, in my opinion, expecting Kuti to cover that much ground versus a guy like Yankuba Minty, who is one of the fastest players in the league, that's just never going to be a recipe for success. Now, I do question, like, where was Destiny? Why wasn't he there? Why was he getting burnt like that? So it's not just, I feel like all the players did good, all the players did some bad. And overall, again, big picture wise, it is a crucial point, a point that we didn't get last season. We're sitting second as I record this video right now. We're sitting second in the league, probably end up somewhere around 4th by the time the weekend shakes out, which that's not a bad little spot to be if you, 5 matches in, halfway to 10. 10 is when it really starts counting. So halfway there, we're doing exactly what I thought we would do, which is just be sustaining, not necessarily be completely open and crazy, not necessarily be completely dominant and big boy alpha male. But, I do still think that, people are trying to draw me out, talking about, oh, if this was Ainge, you would have talked about the resiliency and the mentality to come back. No, I would have talked about how it's Brighton, and you should go get it 3 points versus Brighton. Now, I don't think Brighton are one of them clubs that you go to like Burnley and you say, if you fail to get 3 points, I will be pissed. Because in my opinion, I think Brighton, I think Palace, even, as much as I don't want to say a club like Villa, these are clubs that, when I first was hearing about them, they were talking about championship and this, championship that. And now they're in the Premier League and they've sustained that ability to stay and compete. And you look at some of the results across the board versus the Big Six, obviously Brighton, most notably versus Manchester City. I just feel like we kind of played a little bit into their hands. Again, in the preview, I said that you look at their wins, losses, and draws leading into this match. When they had equal amount of the ball, 50-50, they drew versus Fulham. When they had more of the ball versus Bournemouth, they lost. When they had less of the ball versus City, they won. And today, we did the City thing. We had a bunch of the ball. We had completed over 500 passes, and we didn't get the 3 points. So that part is a little disappointing in my opinion. But overall, I don't think it's time to just freak out, throw the papers out, the meme of the boardroom where they're all freaking out, running around. I don't think we need to be all like up in arms and going crazy in that manner. I do think, though, we just should have been better in the little tightening of a couple screws here and there from Thomas Frank, and I think we'll be all right. So overall, shout out the boys. We did get the point. Again, you fought back from 2 goals down. That's nothing to be ashamed of. However, I still think we could have had 3 goals, man. We could have had 3 goals. We should have had 3 goals. That's what I said anyway. But as always, folks, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new. Comment down below your thoughts as well. What if you agree, disagree, you think I'm a wanker, you think I'm talking nonsense, or you think I'm talking absolute facts, let me know down below. But I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. I look to bring another upload either tomorrow, or maybe go live tomorrow. We'll see. Like you see back here, I'm still in the midst of moving, and we're about to be signing that lease very soon. So stay blessed, stay fresh. Up the lads, and come on, you Spurs. Be kind to yourself and be kind to someone else today if you are listening.